can go live. All right, and we've got people who are going to be coming on in. If you're listening from your phone, you might not be able to type in the chat, so you won't be able to let us know where you are. But hopefully, you'll be able to just hear what you're wanting to hear today. So thank you for joining us. We will start in about a minute. We usually start on the dot, and then that's the usual. Then there are the rare exceptions where we don't start at all, and then sometimes we just start late or early. But today, 6:30. So we'll see if let me just check my email one last time to see if our other guest is. People are re-registering. They shouldn't have to re-register. That's what's really strange.
Pending
Oh,
approval.
that's interesting. Okay. But then that other person was, I'll have to check it again in a minute. All right. So those of you who are, thank you for, we've got some friends here and the attendees. Please just write down where you're calling in or watching in from. If you're on Facebook, please let us know also where you are in from or where you heard about this webinar. I'm very happy to be doing this with my partner, Jodi Lewis. And we started this I don't know, a few weeks after the murder of George Floyd, and for a variety of reasons. One, we've got a many century old problem in our country and around the world. Two, I felt like the words of my brothers and sisters in the BIPOC community had been louder and clearer. And I've been someone who's participated in a lot of different things over the years. But what I heard was, yeah, you participate and then you drop off. So I've been with my partner very consistently doing these webinars as one form of sustainable action to bring attention to dismantling white supremacy, to bringing voices of the BIPOC community, to make this real. And we typically broadcast into my Facebook personal page, which has about 815 people, 850 people, 1,850 people. And then we also put it on my YouTube channel, and we also put it in my podcast channel to try to reach out to let the voices be heard. But as another part of that is we also want to make it very clear that we're not taking advantage of anybody's time. We don't want to take it for granted. We don't want to say, hey, you're a BIPOC member, come speak on our channel for free or whatever, our show. It's not about that. And it's also not about educating white people on how to be better allies, because we can do that. We can, white people, I'm Jewish and I'm mixed, but white people can, there are a lot of resources out there, and we don't have to constantly go to BIPOC community members. There's Star. Yay. Okay, hold on. I got to make you co-host, Star, and then you can get you in. So let me just turn my, yay. All right. So just explaining why we've been doing these. They have been absolutely important to us to be a sustainable action, to dismantle systemic racism, white supremacy, and really just to, we'll drop the mic here shortly because it's not our show. It's not about Misha and Jodi. It's about the members of the community who come forth to share who they are. So again, my name is Misha Safran, and I am a joy and resilience coach and an academic life coach. And Jodi is.
Good evening, everyone. So happy to be here. As Misha indicated, my name is Jodi Lewis. I am actually an attorney, but I work for a nonprofit organization, and we provide services for survivors of domestic and sexual violence.
And you do good work. She's done some appellate stuff, and there's been some legislation change. But our hearts are really wanting to even get closer and more nitty gritty of let's do some work together, folks. So I'm going to share my screen with you and do some introductions of our guests. So those of you who are watching on Facebook, those of you who are listening to the podcast, you won't see this as a viewer, but I'd like to introduce our first guest, and this is Star. So glad you're here, Star. Can you unmute? Are we able to hear your voice and you see your beautiful face? I saw you unmuted, but oh, there she is! Yay! Hey, Star. So, Star is a Williamsport Area School Board Director and a facilitator for North Central Pennsylvania's Alternatives to Violence Project, as well as a panelist for Pennsylvania's Outrun Coalition. And you know what, Star? I had never heard of it, and I looked it up and I was quite impressed. So, I'm looking forward to hearing more. She identifies as African American. And these are the questions that we ask our guests when we send out the request. She was interested in knowledge and wisdom, and I think you're also going to share your knowledge and wisdom, and I'm looking forward to that. And then she suggested that we offer our guests, and this is where I was going earlier, we don't take advantage of our guests, we don't take them for granted. So we offer them either a stipend to be here, or for us to donate to a charity, or to support a business of their own by letting people know about it. So Star has requested that we send donations to Heart of Williamsport. And so we'll also put all this information in the chat and also in the Facebook page. We are donating for each panelist who's asked us. We will put the money that we have set aside for that. But we also ask all of you who are listening and watching to send some kind of contribution in support of these charities. All three of our participants have actually selected charities this evening. And so that's another thing that perhaps we'll all talk about, but we all make a difference and we all make a change. And through whatever trial and tribulations of our ancestors and our current day lives, it's when we give, when we're generous, that we actually receive. So, Star, really glad that you're here. We'll come back to you in just a moment. And then we have Juanita Baldwin, and she is a Chicana, born in Texas, raised in California. Her family were immigrant farm workers. She's a writer, and she's been published. She has some amazing poetry, by the way. We've had the privilege to listen to her share that. She's been out lesbian since 1972, and next semester, get this, you guys, she will be the first in her family to graduate from college. Woo! Yeah. Identifies as brown, and the reason for participating is because she feels representation is important and she wants to be able to make a change. And so I actually realized on Juanita that you gave me the new link and I forgot to change the slide. So I'll go into the email in a moment and change that to give to everybody. What is the actual name again, Juanita?
Or the link, it's the actual name of the
The organization.
organization is called ZAMI Nobla Oregon, and you send it to the National ZAMI Nobla in Atlanta, Georgia.
Okay, and I will get that link for everybody shortly. So we'll
And
come
then
back.
also,
Yeah.
my guests are having a hard time getting in. Apparently that link that I sent them earlier today is not working.
Oh, interesting. Okay, I'll check that in just a moment. Let me introduce
Okay.
Candace. And Candace, you had so much on there. I think I had to shorten it a little bit. So, but what I did was I put on there minus what I know you can speak to. So I figured you could speak to it. So, working full time, married with 3 children, and running a charity, Candace still found time to encourage and help students on their college journey, inspired by her own children and her own college journey. In 2014, she became an academic success coach, and that's how Candace and I know each other, and a college planning consultant. As the owner of Be Encouraged LLC, she assists students with time management, study habits, organization, and self advocacy. It is her gift to get students to know who they really are inside and outside of the classroom. Yes. Candace serves as a beacon of light for families overwhelmed with the college process, providing them with support, guidance, and relief. Throughout the years, she has been able to help countless students and families. Self-proclaimed your professional encourager, I love that, Candace can be found speaking at, and I have a feeling there are more people that have proclaimed that about you than just yourself. So, speaking at women empowerment events, at your local PTA meeting, on social media, giving a word, and since 2019 on her podcast, Candid Conversations with Candy. I didn't know that. Okay, so although she has faced challenges in life, she believes she was chosen to break dysfunctional generational cycles. Yay, Candace. And she's a first generation graduate. Okay, there's something, a thread here. I love it. Working with her own niece, she became the second as a graduate of the first HBCU, Lincoln University. In 2019, Candace's son, her HU baby, began his collegiate journey at North Carolina A&T State University, finishing his first semester with a 4.0. It is Candace's testimony that God will give you beauty for ashes. She identifies as Black. Her perspectives from different cultures on the topic of systemic racism is what encouraged her to be here with us tonight. And her charity that she's chosen is her charity, Shonda's Prom Closet. She's a member of the Operation Prom National Network, and that website is promnationalnetwork.org. And we had your link right. Is that right, Star? We had your link right as well?
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay, and yeah, Candace is good there. So I'm going to stop sharing the screen. And we would love for you three to do is maybe just take a moment to share a little bit more about you, anything that wasn't on your bio, if there's something you meant to put in there and it didn't get on there. Yeah, just take it away. And I think, like we mentioned in the email, just if this is your night, you guys get the next hour to kind of say what you need to say about systemic racism, about your own experiences, about your life. And for the listeners and the viewers, just a reminder, these are their perspectives and their experiences and their feelings. So we don't get to sit here and say, oh, no, you've got that wrong. We don't get to sit here and say, that they're exaggerating or that they're in a different, this is their experience. And so we want to encourage our listeners and our viewers to keep the safe space that we've created for people to be brave and say what they want to say and what they need to say, even if it means three women here calling us out. Jodi and I, like, if we say something tonight and you're like, please don't. I mean, I had one panelist say, Misha, you need to read more about, now I'm going to forget.
Black Panthers.
The Black Panthers, thank you. Because I had a misinterpretation and misrepresentation in the way I was dialoguing. So please feel free to call me out. But it's not your job. I can continue to do my education and my research. So who would like to begin?
I guess I'll start.
Okay, great.
She, like I've been introduced as San Juanita, I usually go by San. My family were migrant farm workers. We came from southern Texas, and we were also politically involved with the Cesar Chavez movement with the United Farm Workers. And I had two brothers that were really involved. They were deeply involved because they went to Washington, D.C. and was able to visit with Robert Kennedy, and Robert Kennedy was a great supporter of the United Farmers Workers Union. And also, the reason for that we were involved and we wanted change and needed change was because in those days, it was acceptable to have the farmer spray pesticide and herbicide on the workers. And then of course there wasn't any benefits, no bathrooms and no breaks. And so we were able to achieve that, and that made some changes, and it has made changes, but there's still more change to be done when it comes to the farm workers. I live in the San Joaquin Valley. We have, we feed quite a bit of the world here. And of course, we have issues with immigration. And I personally feel that the immigrants from Mexico and South America are not crossing the border. The border crossed them, because at one time, as many of you may know, that Texas and other parts of the US of A, especially in the western part, were part of Mexico, and it got bought out. But I know my family from generations back have always been in Texas. Then of course the society is pretty good. It's keeping us apart, and that's the problem. I feel that if people of color, of all colors, could unite and be one, then we could become more powerful. Because and that's about it. Still fighting for the farm workers and fighting for the immigrants, and what they call quote unquote undocumented is my passion.
Yeah, thank you very much, Juanita. I forgot to mention something at the beginning, and It's normal because I have so many things to think about, but I do want to just take a quick moment to recognize the Indigenous people, and that what we learned from Teresa and Brian Melendez last month is that all land is native land.
Mhm.
So I just want to put that out there as a reminder to our listeners and to our viewers that all land is native land. And I know that you had a thought that you were thinking about when Juanita was speaking. Did you want to share that now or wait till later?
I just think it's so powerful, that reminder. And I actually was thinking the same thing Misha was regarding our guest last week, reminding us and me that, all land is native land. But that statement that the border crossed them, I just think is such a powerful quote there. And then that also you talk about united, we all become more powerful. And that those pieces of us learning to connect and see each other, not only as individuals, but we are connected and united, we become more powerful. Those are just really powerful quotes. And I'd like to come back to you, Swan, and talk to you more about, Biden recently saying to Mexico, having this facade almost of opening the borders, but then saying to Mexico, no, keep people there. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on that after we hear from Candace and Star.
Yeah, yeah, thank you. Yeah. So who would like to go next? Candace? Okay, great.
But
And
I
let me just
mean, I think
say,
you guys have
Juanita,
heard, huh?
I'm sorry, Juanita, I did go back into the Zoom account and try to approve the people who were trying to get in. So hopefully they'll get the confirmation emails.
Okay.
Just make sure they use the link to register or not the link for you, because that might be.
No, they did.
Okay.
They did.
Okay,
Yeah, it's
great.
good. Okay. All right. Go ahead, Candace. Sorry.
I'm like, what else could I say after I, had my chunky bio read?
I
But
didn't put all that in there. You've got 3 more paragraphs to talk about.
I know, and I always have when someone asks me for a bio, I'm like, this is the one that I have, that I send to everyone. But I was like, oh, note to self, you should have also a condensed version. But it's just like me because I talk a lot. So, yes, I'm an academic coach and college planning consultant, and the name of my company is Be Encouraged because my parents, although my mom has passed, my dad, when we have talks, he told me that, I had 2 sisters. One is passed, which is Shonda, which is my charity is named after her. She was murdered when she was 30 years old, while we were living in Queens, New York. And one of the things that happened around the time of her death is that she was allegedly killed by her boyfriend. No one was ever charged. It is now a cold case. And there was someone else, a person not of color, who had a story at the same time and actually died in this, was murdered, unfortunately, in the same way. And my sister's story did not get the coverage that we felt it needed. So in my healing process, I always wanted to, make sure that she was never forgotten. And when I met, it was Operation Prom at the time, back in 2008, in 9, actually, because she passed in 2007. So like in 2009, I met Operation Prom and decided to have the Queens chapter in 2010. It wasn't until last year we transferred over to become the Prom National Network because we had grown in so many chapters. And under the network, I was able to change the name finally to her name. And as our 10th anniversary, because I've been now 11 years serving the community, the Queens community, in her honor. So that's great because like we, every year was Operation Prom, the Queens chapter, but everyone knew that we did this every year because this is something that she did. She would help, she worked in a shelter and she was always helping every family that came in. She came home and said, we have a new family and what do we have that we can give to them? And she helped a family friend get ready for prom. So we do it every year in her honor. And my dad would tell me like, out of all the 3 girls, we were all different. And he would say, you was a real different one. You were the one that, I couldn't have a lemonade stand. It was like, oh, here's my lemonade stand, but I also need this register book to keep count of all the stuff that I'm doing. And I'm going to make these flyers. And mommy, could you take them to work and make copies and I'll go put them in everyone's mailbox so they can make sure that they come past the lemonade stand, right? He was like, you were the one to tell me, well, Daddy, money does grow on trees and I make it work for me. And he was, I always look at you like, who, where did I get this one from? But he said, because I am a first generation graduate and I was in South Jamaica, Queens, and I grew up in, I was born in the 80s and grew up in the 90s. And it was just like the neighborhoods we had a lot of fun, but we didn't know we were poor. Like you didn't know you were low income until you started growing up and you meet new people. You're like, oh, so what we're doing over here is not normal. But he said that one thing that they said, we may not have been able to know exactly what to give you. So we always wanted you to put you in environments where you can learn from people. And he said, we didn't know what to do to get you into college. We didn't know how to do that stuff. But what we had was encouragement. And that's where Be Encouraged came from.
That's
So, yeah, so I think that is a little bit more an aid to that bio, I share with you guys, but yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm just going to put a link in the, we'll come back to that. I'm going to put a link to the panelists, you three, where if people are having a hard time getting into the actual webinar, they can click on this link so you can text them or send it to them via email to go watch it on Facebook Live. So, because it is a public Facebook post. So if you have people who are identifying that they cannot get in to attend, then feel free to send that out, or you can even post it and let people know, hey, it's happening right now. And also we are happy to hear from our attendees in the chat. If you want to if you have questions or you have ahas or you're hearing from the panelists something that resonates with you or you never knew, please feel free to add those comments, anybody in the Facebook Live as well as the webinar itself. It's just nice to kind of give the love to our panelists in any way that you are thinking of. So thank you. And we also have some posts on the Facebook of people just really appreciative that this is happening. And you had written some things that you wanted to share or talk about, Candace.
Candace, again, I just so powerful already from everyone speaking, but that piece you said really resonated regarding your sister being murdered. I'm working the domestic violence field, and that's such a problem. There's such a connection between violence against women, but also race, and Black and the BIPOC community often get forgotten in that discussion sometimes with domestic violence.
A lot of times.
Yeah,
yeah,
a lot of
sorry,
times.
To interrupt.
You just have a higher rate in the Black community and the BIPOC community. But I think also that piece where it wasn't covered by the media, and it brought up for me, Breonna Taylor, how it wasn't covered in the media, and yet Black women have done so much work in the movement to bring attention to all the issues that are happening. And I would love to hear you talk about that more when we come back around, if you're willing.
Yes.
Yeah, and I want to also, just on behalf of both of us, express condolences for the loss of your sister, the tragic and horrible loss. And I know she would be really proud of the way that you are honoring her.
Absolutely.
So that's deep love, and you get deep grief with deep love, right? I mean, I lost my mom also 5 years ago, and when there is that deep love, the grief just keeps coming. So, but yeah, I just honoring you for honoring your sister. Yeah.
Thank you.
Star, would you like to say hello?
Yes, hopefully you guys can see me and hear me okay.
Yep, you're great.
So I'm at a hotel right now, honestly, with my kids. I wanted to take them swimming. They've never been swimming, and I knew they had a pool at the hotel. So I took them yesterday, and I thought that the hotel would have great service, and it's terrible service. So I want to check out.
That's okay. We'll keep you while we can.
Okay,
Yeah.
so guys, my name is Star. I'm a single mom with 5 kids. I have a 10-year-old, a 9-year-old, an 8-year-old, and twin 6-year-olds. And pretty much they're my whole world. I feel like everything I do is for them. I'm on a lot of different boards, just like Candace. I try to do as much as I can. And a lot of that is just to give myself more esteem, pretty much, more self-esteem and more confidence. When I first moved here to Williamsport, PA, it was around 8 years ago. And it was because of a house fire. The house that I grew up in with my mom and my brother, it caught fire. So we all had to separate, and my mom moved to Delaware and my brother moved to Philadelphia and I moved to Williamsport. And at the time it was such a traumatic event. Just pictures and things that I saved from my childhood, everything was destroyed. So I was coming here really down and out and already dealing with issues with of domestic violence with my children's father. 5 kids. They all share the same father. He's like in and out of jail. He's in jail right now. So that was the reason why you guys can say hi.
Did we get to say hello?
There's a million of them.
Hi. Oh, they have beautiful smiles like you. Oh.
the restaurant from. But pretty much that's the reason I started. I joined Alternatives to Violence. At the time, it was to try to find a way to connect with their father. Um, but it was a way to connect with their father. I felt like I felt a lot of sympathy for him, and I felt as though if he knew better, if he had the tools, that he could be better. So I took these courses, and it was around over a 6-month period where I had to take 3 different workshops to be a facilitator, and I took this information back to him, and he pretty much shot it down and wasn't interested. But what I got from it was so many tools, so much information, and confidence from being able to teach other women and talk to other women like me and other people like me, not even just women who go through domestic violence or even someone who went through abuse as a child or at all. You know, it's a great way to express those feelings. So that was the first board I joined in Williamsport, and it was pretty much really just trying to find a way to connect with their father. And as I said, in it, I found a way to connect with myself. So from that, as you said, I'm on the board for the Heart of Williamsport and the Outrun Coalition. I'm on the school board. I work with the Clean Energy Council, so many different organizations. A lot of them I don't get paid for it, but I get paid internally, I would say. And I do deal with issues of even conflicting, or maybe some people around me feeling as though maybe I'm being used and this and that, you know what I mean? So that is something that I have to deal with and try to get other people around me to get involved and see that there is, like, you can get a reward out of anything and everything. And I've done so many things. I've traveled, I've been to California, and I've had so much support, so many opportunities. I feel like just because I overconquered a fear, and getting out there and getting in my community. And I just want to thank you ladies so much for putting this on. And a lot of the boards I'm on, we don't get a chance to talk about racism. It's kind of, honestly, most of the boards I'm on, there's only 2 African Americans. It's me,
I was just gonna ask that. Yeah.
30, and it's normally someone way older, who I always adore, always love them. But it's always a little awkward, a little uncomfortable. So it's hard for some people to bring it up. But they want diversity and all of that, but it's hard to bring it up and figure out how to get it. So I just appreciate you ladies not being scared to get us together and just allow us to talk about it and hear your point on it and hear us out. And I just really appreciate it.
I'm so glad you're here. You're getting me all teary.
I'm always so emotional, and I'm like, I always got to pull it back, you know.
No, don't pull it back. I don't pull my emotions back. I cry on every call if I have to. It's because, I mean, this world is a different place today, and yet there's all still a lot of the same. And I'm just hearing and seeing so much courage in you. And I'm moved. I raised 5 children, 3 of which I raised as a single mom. And I'm just seeing the beauty in your heart for even those who were suffering and who's caused suffering. And yet at the same time, you noticed and realized that you were making a change for you more than anything else. And that's what's kind of given you this light to proceed and support you and your children. And I mean, you are definitely a beacon of light. And I'm just so grateful for you being here with us this evening, not even knowing us to be here. Like, we know these other 2 women, but you signed up to do this and be with us. And I think you might have attended another webinar to listen, maybe with Brenda Johnson. I'm not sure, but it was just so, I just appreciate the trust of not knowing us at all and showing up here to be vulnerable and share what you've been through and talk about how you're trying to make the world a better place for you, your children, the community, the BIPOC members. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you again for having me. This is amazing. Thank you.
And I know you had something that you.
Just to echo what Misha said, and that piece of doing the volunteer work and being paid internally, and that your ability to see it for what it is, even though other people are questioning you about it, was really just beautiful. And I think, if you're willing, I would love to hear more about, being on these boards and being one or two people on the board that are from the BIPOC community, and how that affects things or how you feel about it. And also just with your children, what is it you feel like you have to tell them that as a white privileged woman, I don't have children, but if I had children, I would not even have to go down that road. Because I think that oftentimes as a white privileged individual, or if males, I don't know if there are any male in the audience or not, but it's just things we don't have to talk about with our children, whereas you all do. And I think that it's, important to hear that piece.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, we can come back to that. But actually, I mean, even at this point, I think we would love to just let you three engage with each other and really, if there's something that comes to mind, maybe we'll drop it in. But we really want to just give the three of you a chance to react and interact based on what you've heard. So we're gonna zip it. And so who would like to, who's got a burning? Yeah, go for it, Candace.
Star, so nice to meet you. As I'm listening to your story, and I'm truly, one thing that I actually say in my prayers, or I say as a declaration every day, is that I'm always at the right place at the right time, engaged in the right activities with the right people, because you just shared a part of your story of how your house burnt down and you lost everything. And it was very hard for me to get to college. I attended Howard University, and it was such a big deal because people told my parents, like, you don't have the money to send her. I found a way, and my parents, they got me there in 2 weeks on campus. My house burnt down and we lost everything. And my family, my mom, my dad, both my sisters, and my niece, who was only, 3 at the time, got out the house safely, but we lost everything. And when you were sharing that, it just is like, woo. I remember being at school and feeling so guilty for having clothes, and feeling so guilty because I was there, and, I remember telling my mom, I'm gonna come home, and they were like, no, you're gonna stay there. And that I remember so vividly. My house burnt down on a Wednesday, but that Friday that Saturday they were scheduled to bring me my computer and stuff, which obviously got burnt up because we couldn't take it down. And that Saturday they still came down, and my aunt gave me like the computer off her desk, who lived in Maryland, and they still came down. And when I saw them, they had on clothes I didn't recognize because they were living in a shelter. So my first year of school, when I came home for breaks and I'm watching everyone go home to their families, I went home now to the Bronx, and we lived in a shelter during my first year of school. So I was like, wow, look how connected that is today, hearing your story. So I'm so glad you shared that.
Thank you. And I feel like it definitely took me a while to even tell people that happened. I don't even know why. And it's such an important thing because, I took my childhood thing seriously, like everyone else. I kept like poems I wrote since I was little and old math tests and stuff like that. So it was important for me to show that to the kids. So it wasn't until probably like 2 years ago I really realized that was a traumatic thing for me too. I don't think any of us really stopped to think like, oh man, that is pretty messed up. We kind of just had to separate, and that was traumatic itself. So and that's been my main thing. I've been asked to like tell my story a lot, since I said that. People think, I guess maybe I just moved here for fun, I guess, and it's because something terrible happened and something else terrible happened and something else, but in between those things I always snatch the positive things, and just put myself, like you said, around positive people, positive things. Yeah, because I don't know, I'm always happy. I am, even though I'm about to cry right now, because I just appreciate, talking to women like you, like I said. But I'm always such a happy person. So it's not often that I'll say, oh, this is wrong, that's wrong, this is wrong, you know what I mean? So it is just amazing when people say, well, what's your story? If they say, what have you gone through? And it's like, I've been through a fire, I've been through domestic violence, it's stuff like that. It's like, it is really important to bring up, despite of all the great things people see you doing, it's like, well, I've kind of been through a lot, still going through it with the kids. And I feel so blessed to feel like I am on the other side. And, my kids are growing great. My son isn't gifted. I so hope he's where your son is, like I just so hope that he wants to go, that he's 10, saying he wants to go to college. And I just hope he keeps it up,
Mm. Juanita, did you want to say anything? There you go.
Yeah,
I
to
thought you were
start with
unmuting.
Candace, I want to say that, you two are true representation of what a strong Black women or what strong Black women are. And I want to say thank you. And I know, and I'm getting emotional too, because I know that you had a hard story, but when you share your story, you're helping somebody else. And somebody else is going to learn from that. And I know personally that you're never given any more than you can't handle. At your weakest moment, you become the strongest. And I appreciate that. Thank you.
I want to say one more thing, if I can, to Candace's organization, to her sister, how even that in itself is like how something positive, like she just said, something positive can come out of negative things. Even alternative to violence, like I said, I started it to kind of, and it was a negative thing because their dad put his hands on me, and I kind of was hoping that by teaching this, we can get back together, which I'm so glad I'm out of that mind frame. But alternative to violence is like a jewel that I found because they're really dedicated to help incarcerated people and help people that are down and out or have been through the worst things and kind of help turn their mind frame around. So that's something I'm really dedicated about right now and trying to find another way to maybe start something like that. Because AVP, I feel like there are other ways they can also get in there and help as well. And they haven't done it and they have the resources, and I feel like I might have to be the one to do that too. So that's something that I feel and I'm just thinking about Candace's organization for her sister, how it could, negative things can really drive you and push you towards really creating something really positive.
I think all my, like the charity, even my business, having my son. So, my house burnt down freshman year, then I had my son sophomore year. So it was almost like it was like the things that were coming, I felt like were coming to discourage me because when I say break generational cycles, I was going to be the first one to do that. And I had to learn and with the encouragement of my parents to understand that these obstacles are coming not because you're a bad person, you don't deserve anything, but they're coming to stop you because this hasn't been done yet, right? For us, it hasn't been done yet. There's no blueprint. So even when I was the kid that I came to my parents to give them an idea, like, hey, I'm gonna go to we had the show, the Cosby Show in A Different World, and A Different World, there was Hillman. And when I learned about Howard, because my sister went to a homecoming, I assumed Hillman was Howard. And I watched that show with the feeling that I was gonna be there. Like I didn't see anyone doing it in my neighborhood, but I just saw it on TV the nights that A Different World came on, and that show became my Howard University. And that happened when I was 6 years old. So to be someone, and not everyone's talking about college, but I'm like drilling it into my family and no one's ever done it, to get there and have all these things happen. It was like, why am I not supposed to be here? Do I not deserve to be here? And one of the things I learned when I had an idea from my parents, they went with it because it was me. I usually come with an idea and a plan. They're like, okay, Candace, right? And when I was pregnant, one of the things that also happened to me is that because I was ambitious and because I had did a lot of things and I was praised a lot, when I was pregnant, I hid it for 7 months. I couldn't even tell my family. I was so embarrassed to get pregnant while I got to school because I was like, we just came out the shelter and here I go, and I'm having a baby. And how do I tell them? Because I felt like I was a people pleaser and I had been put on such a pedestal. I didn't even know how to come off of it to show myself as human. And so I made a plan. When I do tell them, I'm going to say, I'm not going back to school for this semester. Here's my plan. And I had it all mapped out. And when I did finally tell my mom, she said, actually, what you're gonna do, because I was on home on break. She said, I want you to get your bus ticket, get back on the bus, go to school, and I need you to figure out how you're gonna have the baby and not take off any time. So I did that. And actually I did remote learning in school. I, spoke to my professors and said, hey, I'm having a baby. How do I keep going to class? And they said, well, you can't get an A because of attendance. I said, I'll be home for give me a week to have the baby, 2 weeks. I literally was only home for 3 weeks with my son, and I left him there. I had to go back to school. So I didn't get that bonding time with him. And then I went home every weekend to be with him. And while I was home, they let me turn in work and stuff like that. I had a class that I had to sit for the test, and I was due any day, and I literally took the bus to DC and took a test and came back home. And it was through those things and my mom not allowing me to give myself an out, you know, and all those things did shape me, but it also made me feel like also like why I started the business, like these things happening is because there were so many more Candaces. There were so many more talented kids in my neighborhood. And I always felt like we were good, but we could have been great had we had support and resources because we just didn't know that they existed. And when I got to school, I really soaked up, like I worked in a center for professional development to learn everything I need to know career-wise. And my school was very good in preparing us. And this is the thing about the HBCU is that Howard was, I was in the School of Business, and there was one of the guys that work in, one of the men that worked in the Center for Professional Development was called Dr. Harold Gray. He's since passed, but he was such a integral part of my growth because when I worked there with him, they created all these classes for us. So we had to take golf etiquette classes. We took dinner etiquette classes. We were basically taught to say, you're going to be the Black Harvard School of Business, right? And you're going to be able to go into a room with your white counterparts and you're going to be able to stand out just as great as they are. We don't want your color to be an issue. So these are the things you need to know because a lot of us had not been exposed to those things. And I was able to learn so much. And then I also worked in financial aid. And when I was in financial aid, I was just like a crazy person. Like, I need to find out how you guys are here. Like, how are you paying for school? Because I didn't have any knowledge of it. I took out the student loans because it's all that was explained to us, you know? So, and that's where a lot of the story, like if this charity for my sister coming out of that, it's me, everything I'm done, it literally has come out of something I've had to grow through and heal through. And also going back to, coming from a low income community and us not having the resources, us not knowing, like we literally, the conversation that we're having with people is just that we have these myths in our mind that we are literally limited to only this. And you don't think that any other opportunity exists. And that it drives me crazy. And so I want to educate everyone, but I do, advocate for the Black and brown community because I know that the inequities that are there is that there's not an equality thing, it's an inequity. Like we literally just don't know that we have access to resources. And especially a lot of the students, and I see so many bright, intelligent students, and I'm always, I go for them, right? Like I want your family, please come and find me and seek me out because I want you to know that you have someone who can do such great things. And I don't want them to feel like they don't have the opportunity. So they just don't go for college or anything like that.
Thank you.
I wanted to add to that, Candace, is that because you were saying that you never knew that there was services and availability to get further in your education. And I don't know if anybody remembers in the early 60s, they had, anytime you filled out an application, whether it was for school or when you registered your kids to school or anything, they had 3 races. It was the Negroid, the Caucasians, and the Mongoloids, okay? Because Latinos, Chicanos, Mexicanos, however you want to say it, Latinx, we always fell into the Caucasian because we didn't fall into the Negroid and we didn't fall into the Mongoloid. So somebody got smart and says, how come my children are not getting the financial support from the federal government to have better schools? Well, that eventually changed. And as you know, if you took the census and just recently, there's a whole lot of different ethnicities. But the thing is that the schools do not educate you. When I was in high school in 1974, when I graduated, there was never one opportunity. The counselor never said, if you want to go to college, you need to do this. If you want to do this after college, they just already had my life spanned out that I was going to graduate, get married, have kids, and work out in the fields. That was what was available to us being in the San Joaquin Valley here in California. But things have changed, but not enough. We make that little progress and then we regress. And that's what's happening now, It's a shame because the kids that are in school now, they don't know what's available. They don't have any ideas that, I can get financial aid, I can become a professor, I can become a scientist, or I can, become a pilot. If I want to go to the military, this is how I go into the military. If I want to do an apprenticeship and just learn a trade, because some of those trades are good, but they don't give us that information. And that's true. And I think that we need to start from the bottom up if we want to make real changes and start from the very bottom. And that's, making sure that the community at large knows that we need to have accessibility and equity. I don't want to be equal. And I don't know if y'all seen that video when they talk about equity and equal. There's 3 young boys want to watch baseball game. There's a tall one, the oldest, the one that's kind of mid-size, and then there's the youngest one. They give them equality. Everybody gets a box. But the little one, the youngest one, he can't see over that fence still. So when they change it, the mindset to equity, the tall one, the oldest one, he doesn't need a box. And the middle child, he doesn't need 2 boxes, but he uses his box. And then they give the third child, who's the youngest, he gets 2 boxes, and then they all can see. Now it's equitable, so, and that's what we need to strive for, is having things to be, the services to be equitable, because what you need where you're at, it's not necessarily what I'm going to need over here in California, and that's I think is, if people can think of that mindset, that we need equity opposed to equality,
Well, and that's been a very, very serious challenge right now with the pandemic and equity and access to education. To hear all the efforts, I mean, even just first generation graduates here, imagine, I mean, this pandemic has caused enormous inequities and challenges with access. And largely to the BIPOC community. I mean, there are a lot of other communities also affected, but just like the COVID virus has been also tremendously impacting those communities. It's a real, well, it's catastrophic. It's a real problem.
Can I ask, so what was that, a commercial? I never saw that commercial, and I love.
Oh, that about equity. If you Google or YouTube equity, and there's all kinds of videos, and it's amazing. And because a lot of people think, well, equality and equity is the same thing, but it's not. It is very different. I live nowhere near water, and if the government's handing canoes to everybody, I don't need a canoe, but maybe a bicycle, or something. So this is why we need to think more in terms of equity, making it equitable for people that need to fulfill their needs, not to fulfill the needs what the government may think that we need, because only we as people can say, this is what my child needs at his school. This is what we need here in this community. We need to have grocery stores that will be healthier for us, that will provide fresh fruits and vegetables opposed to all this processed food. Just little things like that. But you can find those videos on YouTube.
What you just said, Juanita, also reminded me when I was taking a teaching methodology class before I started teaching. We had a discussion about standardized testing and cultural differences. Who was on the board creating those tests? And why were some people succeeding and some people weren't? Because they're not equitable. Standardized testing is not equitable.
Yeah.
And there's so much more. But yeah, I would encourage everyone, audience members, everyone to really look and understand better the difference between equality and equity and access. Oh, thank you, Carol. The panelists just put a meme. I will check that out and possibly share it later. Take this wherever you guys want to go with it.
Jodi, if you want to, when you were speaking about Breonna Taylor, and that was actually a really, I'm glad you brought that up, because during the pandemic when that happened, I had to call my dad because it was a trigger for me. And for a couple of days, I was just like, weeping, and the thought of my sister, because she was also in her home. And although, it's not the same exact circumstance, I had to book extra appointments with my therapist to really, get it out. Because she said, it doesn't have to be like the same kind of event, but it was the whole thing of the woman being unarmed and helpless. And she said, even your sister, someone coming into the home that she knew, at that time, for my sister, it was someone she knew and trusted, and for her to not be able to fight back, right? And just the way that it was handled, like a lot of the media she received was from like local Black community, newspapers and stuff like that. And we had to go down to the Justice Departments and get senators, and we got exhausted just trying to be heard and say, why hasn't anyone been charged? Like, if all fingers point to him, why can't we just do anything? And maybe we don't understand everything. Or me giving them a tape of a recording, because I was her last phone call. And I could hear her moaning in my voicemail. And we gave them that tape and it got lost. It was just like, are you kidding me? And so when Breonna Taylor happened, I called my dad and I said, Daddy, I'm not okay. I'm just not okay. And one day he happened to call me. He had to really talk to me, because I said, Daddy, I've been in the bed all day just weeping. I fed the kids and I got back in my bed because it was such a trigger for me. Her being a woman just unarmed in her home. It just brought up so many feelings I haven't felt in a long time about my sister.
Thank you for sharing that, Candace. I watched a video probably last summer. It was a Black woman who was, of course, very angry with what was going on with George Floyd, but also the fact that people are just now waking up. This is not new. These inequities and this violence. And she said, white people should be glad that we're not seeking revenge. We're just seeking equality. And you have terrible experiences of inequity, and I mean, this violence is just painful. It would make total sense, Candace, that the wound reopens. I don't know that the wound ever really closed, but that it's just seeping. It's like anytime something happens, it really does rip it out of you. And I'm actually glad that you stayed in bed and did your crying and took care of yourself, and feed the kids and let those feelings, when we process the feelings, it helps, but this is a long time pain that you're experiencing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Whew, just take a breath with each other for a minute.
Well, I know, honestly, just now on my way back here, rushing to the meeting, I'm running a little late. Me and my kids were honestly driving down the street, and we saw a little boy getting jumped. And I don't know, that triggered something in me too. All these fears of I don't know, of the police, and then being afraid to call them to the scene to help this other little boy, it's like these 20 black boys.
Uh-oh, you froze. We can wait for a moment. I don't know if you can hear us, Star, but you froze. Oh, there you are. Okay. So we
Sorry.
didn't, that's okay. We just haven't heard the last like 5-10 seconds. So
Well, I don't know, we just have so much teen violence in this area. Um, at the same time, like we're building, like we have our first black mayor and stuff like that, our first black mayor in all these years, we have them now. But probably
is she freezing just for us, or did you guys notice is she freezing for you?
Yes, she's freezing.
Okay. All right. Oh, yeah, it might actually, you know what, Star, it might be easier if you keep the video off. You actually, we want to see you, but your sound may be easier. It might be less
okay,
pressure on the bandwidth if you can go ahead and talk now. Yeah.
okay.
Yes.
Yeah, there we go.
Much better.
So much teen violence in our area, and it honestly is a lot of our African American boys. And on top of that, like I said, we're trying to get a lot of change in the area, but um, this area is really hard. It is a highly conservative area. A lot of the things that happen, like anything goes wrong, um, if someone does something bad, it goes straight to your race. That's how I feel. If a black person gets arrested for stealing a pair of shoes, um, they won't. What they'll put in the paper under the comments, which you'll see hundreds and hundreds of comments, is people saying, "Oh, he's probably from Philly," because they equate Philly with black people or bad black people and stuff like that. But what I'm just seeing is that this area has so much work to do, and I was just talking about trigger, just thinking about that. Never my son in the car watching that. He's like, call the cops. And I just, it is so much. It's like, I don't know. I just feel like we have so much to do in this area, so much to do as a people, pretty much. Um, Back in the day, they had like just certain things for kids to do. And that's what I always heard, that's what our teens would do. They would go just skating rink or this and that, or the basketball courts. Um, and our old mayor like took down the courts, and just a lot of things happened that people think were racially based. And I feel like we're here in Williamsport, we're kind of seeing like the tail end of that, or the result of that. Um, and just the last thing, like I said, just watching that little boy get jumped and thinking if we had like a 16-year-old boy that got killed last year, chased down by someone who they say the person was never caught, but a lot of people know who did it. And it's like an older gentleman. He chased this teenage boy down and killed him in front of a big old mansion. It's just crazy to think about stuff like that. And to think of, I feel like it's like a trickle effect of um, systematic racism that's been going on in the area. And it's kind of like no one found his murderer, and a little 16-year-old boy went missing a couple weeks ago, and they just found his body in the river. And even up until then, it seemed like no one was looking. There's just a lot of little things in this area. Well, not little, a lot of things that can be changed in this area that will have a big effect on our kids. And um, just things like this, that we could do it for teens and just get some teenagers down and hear what they're saying and hear their viewpoints, and let them know that people hear them, and that, it's not just your generation, that is something bigger going on, and you got to be a part of the change. And um, that's just what Candace and Juanita, the things you guys are saying, it just made me think of. It just gets me inspired, thinking like, what else can we do? There has to be more to do. Because even now, being on this call is really important to me. Just be able to express myself and be a part of this with you ladies. But it's bigger than that. It's my, watching that, my soul kind of died a little bit. So it's like, here I am talking with you guys, and you get built back up, and I want to use that and just see what else I can do,
Yeah.
to just change the things that's been going on in this area for years and years, and now our kids are really suffering.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Star. You're
I-
on mute, Juanita. You can speak. Mhm.
Yeah, I don't have, I mean, I never had children. I've helped raise quite a few of them, but never had any. And I just can't imagine how hard it is for a woman, especially a woman of color, to have sons, teenage sons, or even older grown men. I mean, George Floyd was not a teenager. He was a grown man and he was killed, you know. And it's, and society seems to accept it as normal. I mean, look what happened over in Atlanta. And they dismissed it by saying that he had a bad day.
Yeah, ridiculous.
Have a bad day doesn't constitute that you can go kill somebody.
Right.
We all have had bad days, and there's a lot of people that have bad days, but they don't go out killing. It's, but because it happens so much that, oh, it's no big deal. It's just a black man, or it's just a black boy, or Chicano. It doesn't make a difference to the society at large because it's not one of them. This had been in a reverse, say a person of color commit a domestic terrorism act against a group of people, a group of white men or white children, we wouldn't even be having that discussion that he was just having a bad day. When I heard that, it just made me want to puke. It's like, Jesus, how are you gonna dismiss what he did? Because of those mindsets, it nothing's gonna happen to him. The most he might get life in prison, maybe not. You know, they might find him that he's mentally ill, but they always go to that. It's either they're having a bad day or they're mentally ill. You know, they don't charge them. They don't get charged for the crime they actually do because they're not a, they, the, the population in general doesn't value a person of color. And if they did, you know, it'd be different. It'd be a different story. If they held people accountable, especially like what the insurrection they had in January 6th, if they held those people accountable for what they did and not just dismiss it by saying, oh, they're just exercising their freedom of speech. You know, that's not freedom of speech. That's not their freedom to go and beat people up and threaten to kill somebody and threaten to hang somebody and then put a noose up. And it's just, I mean, our whole government, it's just not good, you know. And it started that way. It started that way because when they did the preamble, you know, then when they did the Constitution, it says we the people. But we weren't included in it. The only one that was included in it was white men. White men was we the people. The indigenous people were not included. The black slaves were not included. Women were not included. And yet little by little we get into the Constitution, but then they take it away. They gave the black men the right to vote, but they couldn't vote until the 60s because, you know, they were threatened. They would be killed if they voted. They would lose their home. They had to pass a literacy test. They had to have $100. You know, $100 was a lot of money back then. And people didn't have that. And until we go to the very, very basic core of where it all started, then we might see a real change. You know, right? All they've done in the past history is just give us a little bit, to keep us quiet, you know. But it's time that we have a country that is equitable and and like someone said earlier, this land is native land. You know, we're here as visitors and we should honor them. And we should honor that all people should be the same. Our color of our skin does not make us different. It doesn't determine our character. There's going to be good and bad people no matter what race you're in. And I don't know. I am just like fed up. I don't know what to do. What do we do? But I think we need to start from the very beginning. We need to go back and say, okay, this needs to be changed. The Constitution of the United States needs to be changed, because when you all said we the people, it wasn't including me or you or anybody else but white men. You know,
It's interesting, Juanita, what you just said about we're all the same. We have the same blood running through our veins, right?
Mhm.
There are people who get very upset, people in the BIPOC communities, especially when we say, I don't see color as a form of, I believe we're all together. What are your reactions to that? Any of you? When you hear, or if you've heard people say, I don't see color.
that they don't really see who I am. You know,
So
they're not
we're all the same, but yet it's really important to recognize the differences, right? I mean, it's
right.
really
Yeah.
important.
It's to recognize the differences, because we all need different things. We
Yeah,
don't want equality. We can't all have the same thing, because it doesn't work for all of us,
right.
you know. And so what we need is, we need to be seen. If you don't see color, that means that you're dismissing all this racism that's happening. I'm not racist because I see everybody as the same. No, you're not recognizing who I am. I am a Chicana, I'm a Latina. And actually, Mexicans is not a race. We're not a race. You take your DNA, you will not have Mexican blood in you, but you will have indigenous blood,
Yes,
you will have Spaniard blood,
yes.
you will have French blood, and a bunch of other things. We are what I call the new people of this world, because we are not a race. We are a combinations of people. We are mestizos, meaning that we are of mixed blood,
Blood. Mhm.
you know. And and if somebody tells me, and I have my nephew, we have differences. He believes a whole lot different than I do politically. He says, I don't, he's called me Tia. He says, Tia, I don't see color. I said, what you're doing is it's not right, because when you don't see color, that means you don't see that young black man getting shot down. You didn't see Breonna Taylor get killed in her bed. You know, you don't see that. You don't see who we really are and what our needs are. And that's what happens when you don't see color. You can acknowledge people and say, yeah, my neighbor is a black woman. And yeah, she has different things that I need, but or her differences are a little bit different than mine, but we're still the same. Yeah, we do have blood. Our blood's still the same. When we all need oxygen to breathe, but we're different.
Mhm.
That's what makes us unique. If
Mhm.
we're all the same, we wouldn't be fighting here. We wouldn't have systemic racism if we were all the same. If we were all seen with the views of, I don't see color, because
So, what would you recommend? What would you invite people to say instead? Because what I heard at the beginning of that phrase being introduced was a way of
uh,
saying color does not keep me from liking or being part of or offering or inviting. And
mm,
it turned into a very offensive approach to being anti-racist. It actually turned out to be racist as opposed to anti-racist. So
right.
what would any of you, I don't know, Candace or Star, and when you hear, and I thank you for sharing those thoughts, Juanita. When you hear that phrase, I don't see color, do you hear the intention behind it, or do you see that as just another systemic or microaggression racist remark?
Yeah, I think people think that they're doing us a favor by saying, I don't see color. We're all the same. And like Juanita was saying, of course not. We're not all the same. Even with for Black women, some of us don't even like when you say you're a strong Black woman. Why? Is because it's almost like if you put us in a room with a white woman, we are expected to carry a load. We are expected to struggle. We are expected to always say, you can give us the most and we can produce. But there's usually, our white counterparts or a white woman, you're like, be easy on her. She's had a hard day, or she's this, and someone would give the Black woman the load. And that's kind of how we would be even seen in like corporate America, right? And if we speak up, like I actually, I have and Misha, I don't know, I think I may have mentioned this story to you guys, but I have a student who is at a boarding school in a program for young Black women, and is run by a white woman. And her family sought me out, and I was like, I Googled the program, and it's very Black. It looks very Black. It looks like, yes, this is a program for youth, but if I did not know the background from her, and I was like, there's no way a white woman should be running a program for young Black women. How can you relate to them? How can you understand what they're going through? And that was part of the problem, is that she kept trying to voice her concerns, and they kept trying to shoot her down and then called her difficult. And that's a problem. So when you say you don't see color, you can't do that, because when we voice our opinions and say certain things, we're angry Black women, we're difficult. And she just was like, I just want you to listen to me. So if you didn't see color, you should be able to hear me. But that's not always the truth. And what it does is, if we have, and that's what it does for some of the young Black women, is you make them now want to be silent. And those are the same women sometimes who now are in domestic violence issues, and they don't speak up because no one wants to hear them, or they're, experiencing things, and they can't voice it without someone trying to belittle what they're saying. Right. So it's very, it's just frustrating. People say you don't see color. You have to see the color, because we're just not the same. It's just, it's just what it is. And I've heard people even say to my son, when we moved to New Jersey, he had a friend who was white, and said, you're the whitest Black person I've ever met. Because they said, you don't sound like you're from New York, or you don't sound like this, because he speaks. And my son always, he's born and raised in Queens, and he's never sounded like anything. Like, I sound more New York than him, right? So he's always had a proper dialect and things, and people just, and when you see a Black person with a proper dialect, is you talk white, you speak white. So then you do see color, right? So then how are you making that comparison to say, if I speak properly, your assumption is I speak as if I'm white? So clearly there is, it's just so contradictory. It starts to feel ridiculous.
Yeah.
Well, it's also because everything's through a white lens, right? Our country views everything through a lens. So when you say, I don't see color, you're coming from the place of everything's viewed through a white lens.
And through the male white lens. Because, we've got women, when they assert themselves, they're assertive bitches, right? And now you add the Blackness, and now you are an aggressive. It's awful. So you Black women get the brunt of what white women also get, but white women are not treated with the same amount of, like, well, but you're a strong Black woman, so you should be able to do this, as opposed to the white woman, like you said, oh, she's had a hard day, let her down a little bit. But it's all through the white male lens, yet adopted when it comes to Black women by white women's lens. And then, yeah, that actually really, that's hard to hear, that the friend said you're the whitest Black male I know, because it's like, okay, so because you talk a certain way and you have certain kind of privileges, now you are white.
Mhm.
Why can't Black people have that? Well, because it's a century-old problem, that's not how it's seen, that's not how it's experienced. And Chicana, same. There are so many different stereotypes and expectations on people of color. Yes, how can you possibly say you don't see color? Color is beautiful. Color is magical. Color is, just think about the whole world, whether it be nature itself or humans. This diversity is what makes us so incredible. And yet, diversity in human form pays dearly. It's a heavy cost. And I like the idea, Juanita, of going back and changing the Constitution. Maybe that's the next rites of passage. We need to all get on a march to Washington and say, damn it, there's some changes that need to take place here. Yeah. Star, I don't know if you wanted to. Oh, good, you unmuted. Go ahead.
I just love you ladies. You guys just throw out so many gems and things that I don't know, that I might think that I'd be afraid to say, like you said, but um, I know just everything you guys said, I just can think of so many stories too of um, just things like that. I've been told so many times I act like a white girl, and they don't say it like, it's a good thing. It's like my own people, just saying it to me like a negative thing. Or the last guy I dated, honestly, he, I was told numerous times that he only dates white women. Um, and he has 3 kids by 3 different white women. And people made it a point to tell me, and say, "Oh, sorry, wow, you dating him? He doesn't even date black girls. He only dates white girls." And then so at the same time I'm being told that, I'm also being told, "Oh, you act like a white girl." So for me, I felt like, I don't know, I felt like I really couldn't be myself around him. I feel like some things he didn't want to relate to, he couldn't relate to. And when I talked about systematic racism or someone getting shot or stuff like that, his thing really was like, well, they deserve it. Or just always when it was like a black person, that's how I felt. And it just really made me feel so wrong. And like having a black son, it just made me feel like, oh my God, this is really, and I don't know, it's terrible. But like, oh, I feel like definitely growing up, I've heard that and always felt like, I don't know, that I couldn't be myself in ways like that, you know. Even when I had my kids, people like my family told me, "I didn't expect from you, Star. I didn't think you would do that. I thought you knew better. You're the smartest." Like so much pressure. And I don't know, it's really, really difficult. And I just really relate to everything you guys say, even being on the boards I'm on. Sometimes it is difficult to be the because if it's 9 other board members and they're all Caucasian and one other African American didn't show up, so it's just me, and something comes up to where I feel as though this is personal or this is something we can't glaze over that, or I have to speak up about that. But everyone's giving me a look of like, when I bring it up, they give me a look like they don't understand, or, oh, okay, okay, but there's nothing that could be done about it. That is hurtful. Even when I joined the school board, when I ran, I didn't know how many people wanted me to run, or how many people felt like we needed more diversity on the board and all of that. I got asked to run for city council. I didn't feel like I could do that. I found another avenue that I felt like I could be better prepared for. And I also learned that that's a fear a lot of Black women go through, feeling like they're not qualified or they won't belong there and this and that. If I felt more comfortable, more supported, more safe, that I probably would have just ran for city council. But I remember my first board meeting. Before the meeting, our superintendent pulling me aside and telling me, a lot of people want for things like this, and people want to be on the board because they feel like they can make changes. I just want you to know you can't make any changes. There's not going to be any changes, and this and that. Everything's policy, and I kind of felt like just shutting me down, because there was a lot of things that people of my color felt there was issues, and they wanted me to speak up about it. He wanted to make sure to shut that down, so he shuts that down. And when I walk in the room, it's all and they're all friends. It's just really, 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 everything you guys said is just it's so true, and it's amazing that it could be said, and that um, people are watching this and they can hear this, and it gives me more confidence to speak up more and talk to more people and let them know that, if I could do it, you can do it. I felt the same fear of speaking up, but now that the times I do speak up, I am heard. I feel now, and I let that fear aside. He told me I can't make changes, but I don't even believe that. I don't see that, and I know I am making a change. Someone else is going to want to run. We're going to have more people on the board, more people feel comfortable coming to the meetings, all of that. So but it's everything you ladies said is just it's so true.
Star, I mean, you just made a change being on the board. That's the first change right there. So the superintendent, he, she, I don't know, they were wrong. Like right there, you're on the board. I mean, that's awesome. And yes, I hear you that it's like, wow, what a way to come in and just squash your style right away, squash your purpose, squash your intention. And you're not letting that control you. You're still there. You haven't quit. You haven't left. That's amazing and beautiful, and just, yeah, I hope and hope and hope that you just acknowledge your courage over and over again. And I'm so glad we're hearing you today.
Thank you. And that's why I joined the Outrun Coalition as a panelist, because they saw the importance of me, the things I'm doing too, and just pushing forward, not even trying to I'm not really trying to be a leader. Like I said, I'm trying to gain skills for myself and for my kids and for my family. And, you know, even that, like Candace said, being the first generation to do things like this. I'm the first in my family to run for anything. My mother has a disability. My father has a disability. It's like no one else does the things I talk about. Even when I try to grab them in for meetings, they're not used to it. You know what I mean? So I wanted to join Outrun to really pull more people like me in there, not just even young African American women, young Hispanic women, young Asian women, young white women, all people of younger ages, because I feel like we need more people to think a little different and really feel, the sense of community. That's what we really need. Just feel more like a community, how we all are a community, and just share more information. I feel like that's like a key thing. Let's talk to each other.
Yeah, thank you.
I want to encourage Star to continue speaking her voice.
Right?
Thank you. Yeah, that's so sweet.
Yeah. And we've been wanting to we really would love to highlight voices of kids of all ages. So if any of you have children or young adults, who are really interested in being part of this movement to be heard, please send them our way as well. We really want to, we want to be that magnifying, what's the thing called? The bullhorn of your voices. And I think that women, number one, is a place where change is going to happen. And also our future, our younger people. The more we give them the confidence and the skills and the modeling that it's okay to come out here and speak in a safe place where there are no guns. There are no police right now, right here where we are, anyways. And then that's a horrible thing to have to say. But the reality is, we have so many platforms now where people can speak perhaps more safely. And those people who are listening and watching the webinar, we all have a responsibility to be part of the change. And so it's something that Jodi and I have talked about a lot in the last year. Find something sustainable. Find something that you're going to continue to do, and don't give up on doing that. One of the things that happened in the spring after George Floyd was murdered was, and I want to just first, before I even say that, I want to acknowledge all the victims, survivors of the victims' families who've been murdered. So George Floyd's a big name because it was on national TV, it was international TV, and it doesn't do justice to not say all the other names. And so I do want to encourage people to go to #SayTheirNames. It's a website that actually has biographies, autobiographies, and articles on many, many, many people of color who've been killed for a variety of reasons. But if you as an audience, I mean, you can hear, our audience and viewers can hear our panelists are doing a lot of things to combat racism and sharing their expression and sharing their thoughts and experiences. If we as individuals can choose one thing that is sustainable, whether it's, and I put some resources in the chat that with others we've come together to create all these resources. There's scaffolding resources, and there's also becoming learned and more effective allies, all of which to be anti-racist. But these links have podcasts and webinars and articles and books and charities. That if you can find just one way to do it, if you have money, donate it. If you are able to raise the voices and support businesses of the BIPOC community, do it. If you are feeling like me when I had totally misunderstood the Black Panthers, read about it. And don't. So I'm going to give a strange little analogy. Somebody in my family, when I would go to get something from the fridge, would say, "Hey, is there any mustard?" And I would say, "Come right over. You can look for yourself." Or, "What's the phone number for so-and-so?" "Here's the telephone book. Look it up." Instead of coming to me for all those answers, I tried to empower them to look for themselves, find out from themselves. So don't use your Black friends and BIPOC friends and family people to give you that information when you can look for it yourself. But where I was going with that, I just drew a blank, total blank. Hold on one second. Oh, so after George Floyd was murdered, friends were saying, "I don't want to just call my Black friends and ask them if they're okay. I don't want to, they're going to think I'm out of the blue." I'm like, well, okay, they'll tell you if they think it's all, but better to make the mistake than not to make the mistake knowing that it actually would have been the right thing. So we're so afraid to make mistakes, and yet the more we voice, the more we get out there and we're supporting, the more love there is. I'm not always perfect. I say things, I make mistakes, but I'm not going to have a pity party for myself. I'm going to keep learning. And I want to encourage everybody who's watching and listening as well. We only have about 6 minutes left, so I would really love to just give each of you an opportunity to share anything that's on the top of your mind. Maybe you have a hope, maybe you have a systemic change you've been thinking about, maybe you just want to shout out some love to somebody you care about. However you want to use the last 6 minutes, just share it evenly if possible. So whoever wants to go can go.
I would just like to thank you ladies, Candace, Juanita, Misha, Jodi, you guys. I just really enjoyed this, and really I'm over here thinking and just being really introspective, I guess is what it's called, and just thinking about things. And I just really appreciate this and all that you guys do. And I just want to encourage you all to maybe check out the Out One Coalition and talk to young people and try to get them to run for something, or and to be involved. And I would love to be on the next one too. Maybe not as a panelist, but this is really amazing to be able to do this with you ladies. Thank you.
Thank you, Star. Thank you so much.
So I just want to say thank you to Misha and Jodi for, Misha inviting me. I was telling my husband what I was doing. He was like, really? Because it's not like my normal. I have these conversations with him. And, like close friends, I'm very careful because I'm so passionate when I'm speaking about the youth or, the things we've gone through and things like that, that I usually, I keep it really to a close knit, a family and friends. So this was, definitely, definitely a challenge, but when you invited me, I was like, wow, I've never done this. I really want to do it, right? Like I really just wanted to do it. And I'm so glad I did. And Juanita and Star, just hearing you guys speak is just so empowering and really just encouraging to me. I really do feel encouraged, right? To keep speaking and to, one of the things I just love to do is I tell my story a gazillion times. And, for my same student she actually is in the program at the boarding school, they finally, what's so funny is that they have noticed that she's been getting help. And they came to her and they were like, whatever you're getting, you should share with us. And she was like, well, first of all, you guys don't encourage us, right? Because she gets that from me, the whole encouragement thing. So I know that telling the story and the more we speak about the conversation and sustain it, and I think that's, Misha, when you said that, I think that's such an important thing is the sustainability, is to just not stop the conversation because the hype isn't there or the media isn't, having the conversation. So we shouldn't. And I think it's just very important, especially because just what I noticed with Stars, like, oh, you said something that I may have been afraid to say. Now I feel comfortable saying it, it just opened up that gateway. So I'm so grateful to be a part of this conversation. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you. And it looks like Juanita, there she is. Okay,
Good
I was
timing.
worried. I know, perfect timing. Let me make her co-host so she can. Oh, perfect timing, Juanita. We thought we lost you. You're not connected to audio yet.
I think it just went off.
Okay. Say hello and we'll see if it works. Oh, now
Connecting.
she's connecting. Okay. Yay.
I got back in.
No, that was perfect
Got
timing
you.
though. I mean, you didn't get to hear what Candace said, but you could always go back to Facebook and watch it again. But Juanita, please share with us anything that's on your mind.
I just wanted to say thank you for the opportunity and thank you for Candace and Star for sharing. It's been a great opportunity, and hope to see you guys again sometime in a different realm.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much. So again, I put in the chat, and also we put on Facebook that if you want to just register, the link to register to be an attendee, you can actually, when you go into register, you can click on any of the, it's the third Sunday of every month from 3:30 Pacific, 6:30 Eastern for an hour and a half, the third Sunday of every month to be an attendee. If you would like to be a panelist, there's a second link where you can sign up and choose the date that you want. We have those dates going out for a full year, I believe. We ask that people give us their bio and they give us a picture so we can spotlight you. And then, yeah, just very delighted. What a wonderful evening with some beautiful people. And yeah, you want to say any last words?
I just want to thank you all for being here. Just really powerful what everyone said, and love just that continued piece that we all have to speak up to promote and create change, and that there's so many different ways that people can create and promote change. And yeah, just impressed with all of you, and really appreciate you sharing your experiences and thoughts with all of us. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So I'd like to take a screenshot before we sign off of Facebook. So Star, do you think your internet will be okay to go on for just a minute so we can get actually a facial view of everybody?
Yes.
All right, I'm gonna start the scan here, and then we'll all smile on the count of 3. Or we can frown. You guys want to smile or frown? I'm just
There
kidding.
you go.
Go to sleep.
All right, there you are,
go.
Star. Okay,
Yay.
1, 2, 3, smile. Awesome. All right, thank you, ladies.
Thank
We'll
you
see
so
you
much.
soon. And feel
Thank
free if
you.
you have any questions or anything. We will make our donations to your organizations tomorrow when we're back on the work week. And yeah, I would love to hear if you know if other support came in from the viewers and listeners. And otherwise, we'll definitely make our contributions. And thank you again.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you.